Welcome, everybody. It is the Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call. It's our weekly Tuesday morning Pacific time call. Obviously, it might not be morning on your time, like when I'm calling right now, it's 6 p.m. on my current location. Today is June 21st. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm going to be your host for this call as well. Now, today we'll have a typical weekly agenda. So we'll do a quick update on the latest news and what's happening across the Microsoft 365 platform. Then we'll have the group photo together with the people who are on this call. We do have 50 seats on that photo, and we'll take a brief animation out of that. And then we'll have 2 demos today. So we unfortunately had one last-minute cancellation. So we'll have Nick and Alex to do the demos today. If we have some extra time in the end, we can use that for Q&A. It's okay. Better do not have a rushed agenda. So it's completely fine this way as well. Now, before we go to the actual stars of the day, which are Nick and Alex, let's do a quick recap on all of the assets which we have. And I know we always cover this true, but there's always new people in this calls. So there's always good feedback related after the call that it's really good to recap some of these assets because not everybody knows about them. So we do have 2 different YouTube channels. We do have the Microsoft 365 developer videos, or official, so to say, YouTube channel, which is more for marketing owned videos and for the cloud advocates. Then we have our Microsoft 365 community video channel, where we have all of the community call recordings, demos, all of that getting published from the Microsoft and community members. We have a lot of open source assets in the GitHub, which is great. But it might be a bit difficult to find the right sample for you. So that's why we actually have a customized portals and sample portals for specific areas. To be fair, the primary URL for getting access on any of the sample created by Microsoft or a community is AKMS M365/samples, and that's our unified sample gallery. And we'll get the latest number on that one a few slides later. If you're wondering that there's too many URLs to remember, and luckily there's only one, which is AKMS/M365/community, which will get you on the Microsoft 365 platform community page, from where you can find all of the assets and call invites and everything what is available for you to take advantage. Now, we do have quite a few community calls happening throughout the month. Originally, our community calls were happening all once a month, but there was too many of them, so we kind of aggregated some of them to this weekly call, which is then intended to be the weekly Microsoft 365 platform call, all up on all of the different capabilities. Now, this call will be on a summer break between the July 1st and in the end of August. And the reason for this one is that we are expecting once again seasonal drop on the attendees, and we are getting a seasonal drop also on presenters. So we're having a bit of a challenging time on assigning all of the demo slots. So we actually wanted to clear everybody's agenda and have a super clear from July to end of August as summer break. Now, word of warning there, we cannot send you a cancellation because we didn't send you the invites. So unfortunately, it is impossible for us to send you the cancellation for those 8 calls, which are happening between July 1st and August 31st, but you can manually go and delete those invites as a one-to-one between the weeks, and then let's restart in the September. We also have a few other community calls, and these are not on summer break. Adaptive Cards, Microsoft Identity Call, Office Settings, and Power Platform calls. And then we have the weekly cycle between the Microsoft 365 Power Platform community and VO Connection SharePoint Framework community calls happening 7 a.m. Pacific time every single Thursday. On that call, by the way, we will see some Microsoft presenters now that the Tuesday call is off during summertime. So we will have a lot of new stuff available in every single week still. Now, a few getting started assets, just to recap on those and quickly on those. So we do have the 2 main assets to get started. Always sign up for the Microsoft 365 developer program. If you haven't, you will get a free E5 developer tenant with example content and structure and all of that. You can use that for pre-sales purposes, for development purposes, and if you use it for development purposes, it will renew automatically within 90 days. If you use it for any other purpose, it will not renew, and you will need to request a new tenant from the program. We also have a lot of free training material available for you, so you don't have to pay for getting started. All of these are basically designed to get used in the My Developer Program tenants, so they're really optimized for that usage as well. So really great stuff. We also have 2 different podcast or video weekly shows. which are the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast, hosted by Jeremy Fake and Paul Schaffelein from Adding 365, and then our BMP Weekly, hosted by me and Waldrit Mastergaards from the Cloud Advocates team. So new stuff happening every single week, except, for example, the BMP Weekly will go also for summer break because we need to get some family time during this summer. At least in Finland, the summer is the only sunny and lighting time of the year. So on winter time, we concentrate on working, and on summertime, we try to get some relax and charging the batteries. So we'll have a break with that BMP Weekly as well. Now, coming back on the samples, so we do have 1,100 samples now available in our Microsoft 365 sample gallery. Many of them are contributed by you, community members who are joining on this call. So thank you for being actively involved and increasing and helping everybody, increasing the knowledge of the community and helping everybody to get started. And this is really the key objective of this location. So you can come here, do a search query and find out maybe a sample, which is somewhat what you are looking into doing maybe in the production or as a project for your customer. So you don't have to start from scratch. You can find something which will help you get started. Now, that platform is currently in development, so there's some level of maintenance happening. I actually noticed some issues on the platform earlier today, but we're expecting the whole platform to get modernized and be much faster starting within the summer this year. So you will see some improvements in this gallery pretty soon. If you're wondering on then how would I get started with all of those samples, or maybe you don't feel comfortable of in general being part of the community, we got you covered, and I will let David Warner to talk about what is Sharing is Caring initiative.
Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. Well, Sharing is Caring, friends, is a program that is here to provide you guidance, confidence, and access to all the things in the community that you would like to be involved with. It provides hands-on sessions that are safe space opportunities for you to ask questions. They're not recorded. You're going to work alongside other members of the community, other members of Microsoft, other members of the MVP community to show you exactly how you can accomplish a variety of tasks. So perhaps you want to submit a sample to be part of those 1,100 amazing samples that are already out there. We'll walk you through exactly how to do that via GitHub. We know the landscape can be a little confusing. Perhaps you want to present on one of the calls. You're a little unsure. We've got sessions for that and a variety of others. And excited to announce that this Thursday is our very first Writing for the Web session. A lot of excitement. Emily Mancini, Hugo Bernier are going to be leading that. So please don't hesitate to sign up. There is still time. And coming soon is a 2-part Power Pages session with Hugo, who is the new community program manager for Power Pages. So as if I couldn't say Power and or Pages enough. Power Pages, everybody. So we are excited about that. Don't hesitate to sign up, aka.ms/Sharing is Caring. Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David, on that one. Now, moving on the slides. So related on community, I guess we're starting to close up on the timing of this one, but I just wanted to call it out. Still in here, we're looking into community volunteers to be part of our Microsoft Community Initiative. And this is really on building a new Microsoft Cloud community model. And we are looking into explicitly community members to be part of the Community Advisory Board. And the thinking behind of this one is that we want to actually restart the community from events up, and also to have a community representatives on the plans around our community initiative and community work. So you can sign up and subscribe to that model if you're interested at AKMS/MCAB Leader app. And from there you can actually fill in a form, and then the people hopefully will contact you related on the options which the program will provide. But this is really for kind of a restarting our events. You might have heard about concepts called SharePoint Saturdays or all of that, and we're introducing this kind of a cloud all-up Microsoft model in there, not forgetting any of the existing events what you're already running. So we want to be together with you on those events as well. But we want to make it easier for you to have those, and we also want to make it easier for you to get Slack officially from Microsoft and all of that stuff. And that's what this is all about. And you'll hear much more about this model in the future as well. Now, quick updates on the news. We didn't have a significant amount of news updates within the last week, but first of all, on the Microsoft Teams side, there's a new capabilities which are supported. in the VDI model. So VDI means the virtual desktop infrastructure model, where you actually are kind of running the Microsoft Teams in a different computer, but then it looks like and feels like that it's running in the computer where you are. So it's a bit of a different model of consuming software. And in the VDI environments, we're adding new capabilities in Microsoft Teams. If you're not in those environments, you don't need to worry about that. Now, on the SharePoint product side, we actually had 4 different updates, which is really cool as well. So there was a new blog post from Mark Cashman related on working with templates in Microsoft Lists, and this is really no-code, low-code experience with Microsoft Lists, which provides the custom format capabilities, which is really, really cool. We also had an update on all of the most used SharePoint framework solutions from the App Source or from the Office Store. So that's a top 10 list, which were the most used in May. There was also a blog post from SharePoint developer support related on how to create a Microsoft 365 group with sensitivity label programmatically. And this is really around the compliancy and the rules which will be then applied on the Microsoft 365 group whenever that label has been applied to the group. So there's an automation behind the scenes which can start as part of that. And then the last thing there, which is actually quite important, unfortunately, it's not super visible what that's all about in the title or in the short description, but this is really about a new capability in Microsoft 365 assessment tool to assess workflow, SharePoint 2013 workflows in your Microsoft 365 tenant. So SharePoint 2010 workflows in the cloud are completely already deprecated and gone. They're not supported. SharePoint 2013 workflow model is going to be sooner or later deprecated. So we haven't announced any timelines yet on this. That's going to be announced later. But this tool is already giving you an insights today on how much is SharePoint Workflow 2013 instances running within your tenant, and then maybe pushing you to a direction of using Power Automate and on other modern capabilities for those business automations. So really nice tool to take advantage. Now let's then move on the updates on the Microsoft Teams platform doc side. So Vachit, to your side.
Thanks.
To you.
Thanks, Vesa. Hello, everyone. I'd walk you through the Teams platform updates. So the first update is on the link unfurling supporting Share to Teams dialog. So using Share to Teams feature, third-party websites can use the launcher script to embed the Share to Teams button in a pop-up window. This allows you to share a link directly to any person or Microsoft Teams channel without switching the context. And link unfurling allows your web service to unfurl the URL into a detailed card, providing more information than the standard website preview card. Till now, link unfurling was supported only when you're composing a new message. Now you can add link unfurling for the links shared through the Share to Teams button hosted in a web app, personal app, or a tab. Note that this is still in a developer preview. Moving on to the second update, this is on the App Studio deprecation. This is a repeat update from the last week for the new folks. App Studio will be deprecated by 30th June. Now you can configure, distribute, and manage your Teams app with the new developer portal. Your existing apps will be available in developer portal under apps/App Studio. You can upgrade these apps to the latest configuration so you can start using them in developer portal. So these were the platform updates. If you have any feedback or suggestion, please do post it on ak.ms Teams platform feedback. The links are available in the footer. You could also follow us on Twitter and configure the RSS feed to get the regular platform updates. Thank you. Back to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Vachit, on that one. And it's good to see the clarity related on App Studio versus developer portal. So the dev.teams.microsoft.com, it is the default for developers to use, and App Studio is going to go away. Deprecation means that it will be there, but it's going to be dropped sooner or later. So please use the dev.teams.microsoft.com. Now, before we go to the actual stars of the day, let's do some group photos. So for those people who are willing, let's do a group photo in together mode by enabling your video. And I will set the together mode here in a second. I already did that, but nobody had the video on, so it dropped it already. So let me do that. Here we go. I will put myself in the screen. We are not yet recording, so wait a while. We have 50 seats in the room. Are we getting fill in? A lot of familiar names, faces, certainly in the rooms. Not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. Let's wait a while. Let's wait a while. Let's wait a while. I will put the recording on. We'll still have 2 more seats, 3 more seats, maybe. Okay, I guess we're good. So let's do some hand waving, everybody. Thank you for joining once again on the call. And we can do even though Seb isn't here, we can always do the step. Let's do some hand waving. Here we go, everybody. Thank you for joining once again on the community call. There's final things on the front row. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And we'll grab a GIF animation out of that. It's really, really cool. Thank you. Now, then we'll actually go to the real stars of the day. As mentioned, we originally have 3 demos planned for the day, but we actually have now 2, and that's fine. We can always close a bit earlier, which is completely fine option as well. I guess we always need those 5 minutes here and there between the meetings as well. But let's start with Nick and then go to Alex after his topic. Nick, I can see you in the call.
Thank you, Vesa. All right, let me share my screen. Glad to be presenting to you folks today on this very first day of summer. It doesn't look anything like summer where I am. I'm actually located in Ottawa, Canada, and it is a cold 15 degrees right now. I am a senior program manager on the Microsoft Graph team. I'm also I'm focusing more on the component called Microsoft Graph Data Connect, which is a way for you to extract data in bulk. And I'm also the principal lead and creator for the Microsoft 365 Desired State Configuration Tool. The topic for today is going to be a little different than what I normally present, right? I've been presenting on this forum a couple of different sessions. Today, we're going to be talking about the Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK. What I want to do is I want to just quickly do a quick overview of what the module actually is. It is something that's available right now in the official PowerShell gallery. For those of you that are not familiar with the PowerShell gallery, you can go to PowerShellGallery.com. So this is a Microsoft-owned website where we publish all of the, yes, it's 15 Celsius, Brian, very important. I should have mentioned that. I'm in Canada, so we talk Celsius. So it is available in the PowerShell gallery, and essentially what it allows you to do is to install any modules that we published with a simple command, right? So you can go in, install module, for example, Microsoft 365 DSC. It will go in and will automatically download the bits from the PowerShell gallery and install them on your machine. Now, Microsoft Graph is a group of about 40 plus different PowerShell modules, right? In total, they make for about 660 meg of PowerShell goodness. So when you're writing your own scripts, it's really important that you only pick the ones you want. Unless you want to install the whole thing, be my guest. However, normally when you write your scripts, you're going to go in and let's say you're trying to interact with emails, you're going to go and install the Microsoft Graph.mail module only, which is only about 10 meg in size. Overall, when you install all the Microsoft Graph modules, we offer over 17,000 different commandlets in PowerShell. We support PowerShell 5.1, and we also support PowerShell 7 and above. Really important. Now, every single graph operation that is exposed, right, is going to be exposed through various commandlets: the get, the new, the set, the remove, right? So essentially your CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. The permissions for the commandlets are going to be driven by Azure AD. So you go in and you create your Azure AD application registration, and then you can either grant delegated or app-only permissions like you would if you're writing any application that would call the REST APIs. And automatically, as I mentioned, right, when we onboard new APIs, so when new features are being rolled out or when new workloads are being migrated over to Microsoft Graph, we automatically provide PowerShell support. So we essentially wrap it directly inside of a PowerShell commandlet. So it's always up to date. So when we have it on Microsoft Graph, we have it in the PowerShell module. Another thing that's really important to note is that it is open source on GitHub. So if you have any questions, if you have any feature requests, or if you cover any bugs, you can go in the GitHub repo and then just open an issue in there, and you're going to be talking to the product group directly. That's it for the slides. Now let's move on to the demos. The first thing is I wanted to do a quick tour of the PowerShell gallery. So this is what the PowerShell gallery looks like. If you do a search on Microsoft.graph, you're going to see all the various PowerShell modules that we have. right? So those are the 40 plus modules that I mentioned. If you're trying to understand, right, because there are so many modules, there are over 17,000 different commandlets. Let's say you're trying to get user emails, right? And you know that the command you're looking for is the get-mg. MG stands for Microsoft Graph user message, but you don't know what module you actually need, right? And Eric, yes, there are many PowerShell modules, but we're making it easier for you to figure out what module you actually need, right? So if I go in here and I actually just go and let me just clear this here. If I go in and just execute, and I'm using the PowerShell ISE just because it makes my demos a little easier to go through. But essentially, if I do the find module and then pass in the command name, I can go in and get the module that's associated with this commandlet here. And then what it returns me is essentially information that the command I'm looking for is part of the Microsoft.graph.mail PowerShell module. So what I can do then is I can go in and simply go and install this module here to get access to this command. What I'm going to do here is I actually have a few modules that I need to install for my demos. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to install the main one that you will need for any script is the graph.authentication one. That's the core module for the Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK that will allow you to go and obtain the token from the Microsoft Graph, right? So this is what you would use to go and connect essentially to Microsoft Graph. In my case, I'm going to go and grab about 5 different modules. Directory management is probably more like 6 or 7. The mail, the reports, the teams, and the actual users. And I'm going to go and use that install module command that I mentioned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to run this. And what's happening in the back end, you can see it here where it's actually downloading the modules from the PowerShell gallery and installing them on my machine. What installing means in this context here, it's essentially downloading it as a zip and extracting it in a specific folder. And that folder is under C Program Files Windows PowerShell module. When you're installing it for all users, right? You have the choice with PowerShell 7 to go and install it directly inside of your users folder. But normally these modules would just get exported in there. And if you take a look at the various modules, all you see is that those are actual PowerShell modules. Right, so there's no binaries being installed. It's just downloading PowerShell modules and putting them in that location. So now that we have everything installed, what I want to show you is how authentication works. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be connecting to Microsoft Graph using a delegated scope. So I'm going to be connecting using the connect mg graph command. And I'm going to be specifying the scope, the permission scopes I want my user to get. In this case, I'm going to go and get mail.read. And you know what? I don't even need this here because I did update my demo. So I'm going to go and do mail.read. So let's do this here real quick. I'm actually just going to make sure I'm not connected to any other sessions. I'll connect to Microsoft Graph. It's going to prompt me for my username and password. So in my case, I'm already connected with my account. Connect. I've acquired the actual token, and now I can go in and do operations against the graph. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be calling into the get mg user message commandlet and passing in my user, the user I actually connected to Microsoft Graph with. And I'm going to be retrieving the emails, at least the top 10 emails for that user, and I'm just going to be printing out the subject for those emails. So let's run this here. And I'll come back with the subject of the last 10 messages, right? Most of them are actual PAM, privileged access management requests, but I can see that I managed to go and extract the emails. Now, if I try to do the same thing and get the emails for another user, so good old Adele in my demo tenant, I'm going to go in here and try to connect to this, and I'm going to get an access denied. Reason for this is because I've authenticated using a delegated scope, which means that the token is only valid for the user scope that I connected with, which means I'm only able to get my own emails, right? So I can't go and get information for other users. Now let's take a look at app-only authentication. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to disconnect here. And what I've done is I've actually inside of, I should have done this here instead. Inside of Azure AD, I created a new app registration called Nick PowerShell App Only. And for that app, I've actually granted some application level permissions. Those are mail.readwrite. That's the one we're really interested in. These are going to be useful for other demos later on. But essentially what I've done is I granted mail.read application right for that application. In my PowerShell script, what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to go and authenticate using that app ID, right? The client ID here, I do have a certificate that's installed, and I'm going to connect to that tenant ID. So let me obtain that app only token. Perfect. Yeah, I already did connect it. Perfect. So now let's do the same thing. I'm going to go and I'm going to get the messages or the emails for the NIC users, so my account. It's coming back with my 10 top emails, but we were able to do that with delegated. Now, if I go in and try to get the messages for Adele, I'll be able to get her email, which are different than the ones Nick had, of course, because I'm now authenticated as a service principal using app-only permissions. Are the PowerShell modules pre-installed with Azure Shell? I believe they are now. I need to double check that. I'll have to confirm that. But last I checked, and actually that should be fairly easy for me to check. I see Vincent Birez on the call. Vincent, if you don't mind, just go in and double checking. But last I heard, the Microsoft Graph modules were available with the Azure Cloud Shell. Let's move on to another thing, right? So I did mention that any endpoints had PowerShell commandlets exposed for them. So essentially, so we can do CRUD operations. In this case here, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be connecting using delegated permissions. I'm going to be using the scope chat.readWrite, which essentially allows me to send messages. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to be sending a new chat message to my admin user. And the message is just going to be something like demoing Microsoft Graph SDK and today's date. Okay. So if I go in and run this here, this is again just to show you that it works for any CRUD operations. I'm going to connect with my account, and it should, if I go back here, I did have Teams open. I should see, there we go, boom, new message, 11:28. It is my local time, and you can see that I was able to actually send a message on behalf of the delegated users, which is Nick Charlebois in this case, to my admin account. Okay. Great, moving on. How do you find permissions? This here is something we had been asking for months before they actually released it, right? So the PowerShell Graph SDK was released, if I remember correctly, sometimes in 2020. This find MG graph command was released with version 1.7 just a few months back, but it allows you to go and discover the various commandlets based on URLs and also identify what permissions your apps are going to be requiring based on the commandlets you're using. Let me give you an example. So let's say you're going in and the first thing everybody should be doing when they're trying to learn Microsoft Graph is go to the Graph Explorer. You go to the Graph Explorer, and in my case, I'm trying to go and understand, all right, I want to get all the security alerts for my environment. So if I go in here, I can see that the URL for this is /security/alerts. Okay, so that's the URL for the Graph REST APIs. So what I can do now is using this find MG graph command, I can go in and say, all right, find the commands that are associated with this URI, that is the security/alerts. And if I run this, it's going to come back and it's going to tell me, all right, here are the commandlets you're looking for, the get MG security alert and the new MG security alert. If we take this a step further, I want to understand, all right, that's all good, but like what permissions do I actually need? This is another example where we're going to be trying to get information about the get MG directory setting command. Right, get MG directory setting is a way for me to actually be able to get different policies from my Azure AD. So I'm going to go and run this, but this time I'm going to go and select the permissions from the return. So if I run this here, it's going to come back and it's going to tell me, all right, if you're trying to use the get MG directory setting, here are the permissions you need. The reason why I have two, by the way, is because this is available on so there's actually a new and a get there, right? But I'm going to be able to see that, all right, so the least permission you need is directory that access as user.all. And it's always from left to right, right? The least, like the lowest level of permission you need is directory that access users.all. And the permission that will grant you access to more than what you actually are looking for probably is the directory that read write all, but it's always from left to right. Thanks, Vincent. So, all right, so I thought it was installed by default, but I'll double check with the team. But yeah, all right, so you could do an install module and just grab it in there, and then it would be go into your local storage account, and you'd be able to use it in the Azure Cloud Shell. All right, so that's for getting the actual permissions. Now, how do you differentiate between the beta and the V1 endpoint? let me connect again. I'm going to be using a delegated scope. I'm going to be using the directory, the read write all, so which is the top permission that I need. I'm going to go and connect to this, prompt me for my username again, get my token. I'm all good. Now I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to try to call into the get mg directory setting command. Like we know this exists, like we were able to get information about it. So I'm going to go and run this. Right, and it's going to come back with an error saying, yeah, that command, like we don't recognize it as the name of the commandlet. But I know it exists, right? Why is that? Well, that's because it's only available in the beta endpoint right now. The way you can tell what current profile you're running PowerShell under is by using the get mg profile. So I can see that I'm currently connected or using the v1 profile. What I need to do is I need to switch to beta. And I can do this by doing select mg profile and then pass in the name beta. So that will actually switch my profile. It will load different commandlets based on my selection. Shouldn't be taking that long. Perfect. Now I can just confirm that, yeah, all right, I'm now running beta. And if I go in and do get mg directory settings, now I can actually get the information back. And I can do things like set the group's naming policy. I can go in and do the group's lifecycle management as well. This is how you flip between V1 and beta. One other example that I think is extremely interesting is being able to retrieve basic auth sign-in info, right? With the upcoming deprecation of basic auth, how can you actually create a script that will go and monitor all the sign-ins against your environment to detect those basic auth connections? So what we're doing in this case here, I'm going to be connecting using app only. I'm going to be retrieving all the logins from the audit login signing endpoint for the past 7 days. I can go do 7 days. I can do 30 days, 90 days, 180. And I'm going to be filtering that based on date, but also whenever the client was in a browser or was in the mobile app for MFA, for example. So let me just go and run this here. And then this will return me a list of all the actually, I need to print my variable. That would be helpful. So those are all the basic auth authentication sign-ins that happen against my environment, right? So very useful for you to be able to monitor and try to understand, all right, like what's going to be at risk when we finally get that deprecation of basic auth through. The modules are updated, so they're not automatically updated when we have new additions to the graph, right? So we do have release cycles. Those are normally every month and a half, I would say. So it's not as soon as an endpoint is available that we have the support for Microsoft Graph. All right, and then the last one is running reports. Okay, so I'm going to be defining a path, a local path on my computer that's demo report CSV, sorry. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go and use the reporting endpoint called mg report mailbox usage detail. I'm going to run this here. I'll come back with an error because essentially we still have some gaps in the PowerShell Graph SDK when we're trying to actually stream data back to a file. The problem in this case here is that I'm trying to get the data and then populate it inside of a CSV file. So that is still not working. We are working on this with version 2.0. That's going to come shortly. In the meantime, what you can do, though, is you can go in and you can call the invoke mg graph request command. So that will allow you to use the current context. So your security token is applicable here, and you can call in directly into a URL. And in my case, I'm going to be calling into the URL that this commandlet is calling behind the scene, which is the report/get mailbox usage detail. And I'm going to be passing in the output file. So that here will actually get me the data I want. And then what I can do is I can just read that CSV and then output it to Outgrid View. For those of you that are not familiar with Outgrid View, it's a very useful little commandlet that we have where you can actually pipe any object into it, and it will generate a .NET interface that lets you go and filter, sort, and do searches against your PowerShell object. So that's all for demos. I'm quickly browsing through the chat. So are all SDK commands running with delegated permissions? Essentially, it's the same as the graph, right? If we support delegated permissions for the graph endpoint, we have it for the PowerShell command. If we support app only, we do have it, right? So the idea is that identify what endpoint is being called by that commandlet, and then go in and you can go on the docs.microsoft.com, find information about that endpoint, and it'll tell you, right, like how our articles are at the beginning of every page, we have a table that will say delegated, here are the permissions you need, app only, here are the permissions you need as well. Yes, I will be sharing my demos as well. So this file here, I'll be removing my certificate thumbprint and tenant ID from it. But yes, I'll share that with Vesa. And Vesa, it's going to be on you to figure out how you want to share it. Probably in the comments. We
push all of the presentation as part of the blog post and blog post summaries of the recording. So all good. So.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks. That's all, folks. So I know there might be other questions in the chat, so I'll answer them directly in the chat. I appreciate you joining the session, and I'll pass it over to Alex. Thanks, folks.
Yeah, awesome job. Thank you, Nick. A really good set of components and automation. That's just brilliant stuff on the graph. Let's jump to Alex, to your screen, and move from there.
All right. So hello, thanks for joining today's session, everyone. My name is Alex Kwan. I'm here to talk to you about the Azure Communication Services UI library. I'm covering for David. He's really good at these types of presentations, but as an engineering manager working in this kind of space, I should be able to talk about it as well. So that's what I'm here to do. So what is Azure Communication Services before we even go into a concept of what a UI library would be for it? So Azure Communication Services is an Azure service to empower developers to build communication experiences. That's all in the name as well. But what it's really doing is it's taking the communications infrastructure that powers Skype and Teams and making it available through Azure. You can also imagine just that by itself is an amazing product, but when you consider the other offerings within Azure and M365, it starts to let the mind run with a wide variety of scenarios that are possible. All right, so we just wanted to visibly enumerate through some of the big pieces that we work through. So voice and video calling, telephony, SMS, and just recently we've been able to bring email into public preview as well. So in addition to all these core capabilities, how we communicate, one massive perk with working with Azure Communication Services is our ability to interrupt with Teams. Or M365 at a larger scope. So that means that you can take an end user that may be on their own type of client, such as we see on the left, that's M365 or AD authenticated, and be able to chat with someone who, for all intents and purposes, could be using the exact same client, but they're actually able to use the Teams client, which is actually a very interesting scenario across a wide range of domains. Some of these obviously being telehealth, a patient being able to get a link through a text to go join a call that their physician is now ready to speak to them, right? In education, teachers being able to host classes where the teacher is on Teams and the students may be on a client that looks like it's part of their LMS. So they feel like they're just within their school system, but in actual fact, the teacher is using Microsoft technology such as Teams. You can imagine a webinar where there's a bunch of people just watching some video off of a website, but the actual presenter is in Teams. And so the presenter is able to use all the tools that they're used to in order to create a great performance. And even going even further out, imagine just connecting end users with support staff. So if you're launching something and a lot of people have questions and you want to be able to create a great customer service loop, having people be able to send stuff and then having other people using Teams to answer through calls or chats or other modalities is all possible with Azure Communication Services. Ultimately, though, this isn't the Microsoft experience that you're getting from us. It's something that you're building yourself. And so that means bringing in your own identity. It can be an M365 identity, but it could be something else, right? I shudder the fact whenever I log on to a new website and they make me a new account, make me like force some type of new account. So if you already have accounts with identity set up, you can use those along with Azure Communication Services. We make zero assumptions about customers already being in M365. We are creating like client-side offerings across a number of platforms such as web, desktop, and mobile. So on the website specifically, we support Chrome, Safari, and Edge. Firefox is in the backlog, and that's specifically for calling. And then finally, the look and feel. So you're creating this client-side experience yourself. You should be able to build it complete from scratch, or better yet, use components that somehow we can provide you to help build out your communications experience. Cool. So when building communication experience, it's hard to imagine something without UI. The UI library is a set of components that many of our developers will often use in piecing together a calling or chat experience. And some of the pieces that we want to highlight are customizability, right? Can I change how it looks slightly to match my overall app experience? Accessibility. Am I going to have a fully accessible website, but then once they start going inside this calling experience, it's going to have a subpar experience? No, so we actually work very, very hard on this and work with a number of accessibility teams across Microsoft in order to ensure a really great product that people can fit into their own experiences. Localizable. So we've built out our components. We know what strings go into various spots, and we've actually been able to use the localization systems that we use within Microsoft to create a set of locales that customers can use for a wide variety of their customers speaking a multitude of different languages. And finally, responsive. It's got to look good, whether you're on desktop, tablet, or phone in a variety of landscape and portrait configurations. Today, it's in GA on web, and will soon be GA on native mobile on iOS and Android. It's important also that designers have the building blocks to craft these experiences. So internally, we built a design kit using Figma that helps my team build out these types of UI components that we're able to share with you today. And so it makes sense that we would actually want to be able to share this design kit with our customers as well, so their designers can build with the exact same tools that we use to help drive some of our amazing experiences across Microsoft. So maybe I'll just pop out of here and show really quickly the design kit. So this is something that our designer Alex Pereira has been working on. And I can go a little bit more in depth into it later, but I believe this is what you see when you go to ACS Design Kit, aka.ms/ACS Design Kit. All right, we'll continue on from here. So what is the UI library? It's almost easier to try and drive the value with pictures. So here is a standard call and chat type of experience that we can piece together today. You can imagine this major portion on the left side is around this video gallery. Each video gallery represents participants via tiles. So we can see Carlos here is a remote tile. It's coming into us, whereas we can see what we are pushing out on our outbound stream in our little preview tile. Every single tile where someone's camera is not being shown, we're using UI that we've seen traditionally in Teams, such as like personas, where it shows the participants' initials. Below the video gallery, we have our control bar. This is with a bunch of controls you're probably used to, such as like turning on and off your camera, muting and unmuting, and being able to share your screen. And then to the right side, we have your message thread where all your messages will show up in real time, as well as an ability to send new messages. So these are the components that people tend to gravitate towards when trying to describe, like when people kind of start to convey to us what they think a UI library is. So what it really is, it's so this UI library is open source. It's a set of white label composites and components. They're designed to help get you to those core calling and chat experiences extremely quickly, and that includes team interoperability. And as I mentioned before, it's available on web. The library is based in React, as well as on native on both iOS and Android. But why should you really use the UI library? Because I can create a button. That's not a problem. But can you create a button that is synced to the underlying logic of the call and guarantee that 100% of the time that it's always going to work? Imagine your microphone looks like you're muted and you're not, which is another source of nightmare fuel for myself. So that's an area where you would imagine like, hey, can't a team just build this and I can use it, right? Why do I have to focus so much on customization if I'm probably gonna have the same customization needs as everyone else? Accessibility. I like everyone can roll out their own type of accessibility, but wouldn't you rather want the Microsoft level of accessibility there, where we hold ourselves to extremely high standards? Same thing with localization. Like I'm going to use English, or I'm going to use French. I'm sure other customers are as well. And being able to leverage that has so much value. And then responsiveness and fast feature adoption. Does it fit just right? And can I start using components that are already using new features in Azure Communication Services that I really want to use today? So just to sum up everything, we can build custom communication experiences, you can use your M365 identity as an example to power up some of those types of components. You can interop with teams, joining meetings, webinars, being able to call people and chat with people in their Teams client from your non-Teams client. You can customize it how you want to look. And to be honest, if you want to look like Teams, all power to you. And you can use all these types of functionality in your custom client that you're used to in Teams, such as like our typical calling, chat, and file sharing today. All right, one other minor thing, if that felt like a lot of coding, we do have this sample app builder that allows people to compile in a bunch of these components together to create a virtual visit scenario where you can quickly hook it into your types of virtual visits flows that you can try out today. Cool, and demos, but I'm going to quickly check the chat first. Are we out of time for demos?
So we do have like 3 minutes before we need to close. So, and demos are always good if you have something to show.
For sure. Let's go fast. So this is a quick demo of our documentation. So if anyone's been building UI in the last several years, is this concept of Storybook. Storybook is really cool because you can actually get to play around and see these various different types of components and how they work together. I talked about the design kit, but what happens when you really hit that duplicate button? Well, I clicked it for you folks. So it'll actually create an instance of the design kit that you can play around with, as well as creating a really great tool set for designers so they can piece together something amazing for you. Now, you can take those types of components that you may compile here, and you can actually throw them together. And here are some of our UI components that we have. And just to show you that this is, first of all, this sample is coming from our JS Quick Starts, which we can find a link for if people are interested. But it's all kind of hooked into the really cool stuff that you're used to when working with like local JavaScript code, such as like hot reloading. So maybe I'm in a call with Vesa, oh my gosh, and myself and Michael. So when I hit save here, you can see here that it automatically scales. You get that type of video gallery scaling for free by working with the UI library in Azure Communication Services. Now, in our Storybook, we also have cool things where we put like little sample apps in here where you just pass in your token and it all just kind of works. So I'm actually just going to join this call right now. So my video's off here. That's good. So I can turn my video on in here. So this is kind of like a Teams-ish experience. You would like to know that you're able to see what you may look like before you actually join the call. So hello, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to be an anonymous user in this meeting, assuming the stars align. Oh, cool, I'm here. All right, well, that's enough of that. And then finally, the sample app builder that I just talked about. So if you really didn't want to write any code at all, this is the type of experience that you could be using where you could like integrate with your Microsoft bookings. Say if you want to chat enabled or disabled, whatnot, you can change. I think I just have to put in some text here to let me go to the next step. But you can like change your themes, your company name, and then here's what it could look like on the various screens with your customizations. So very cool, lower-ish code and no-code solutions that folks can try out with Azure Communication Services. All right, that's all I have. I'm going to be reading the chat later. I'm sure there's tons of questions.
Really cool stuff. Thank you, Alex, on that one. Awesome, awesome, awesome. That is so cool that it's up to that level that the UX elements are provided for the people who are integrating to the Azure Communication Services, not just an API, but actual controls. So really, really cool stuff. But it is time to close up for today. So thank you, Nick. Really, really cool demo as well on the Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK. And by the way, Nick, that is a great demo explaining why it's an SDK, why it's not Microsoft Graph PowerShell, because again, you pick the modules what you actually use, and the coverage is so awesome in the Graph APIs. And thank you, Alex, on a great demos as well. Now, the recording will be available in 24 hours in the YouTube channel. That you cannot access the recording from this chat, so word of a warning on that one, so don't even try. That's impossible. This call will be on a break in July 1st to 31st of August, just a reminder on that one. So the last call within this season, so to say, is happening on 28th of June. So that is next week at 8 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday next week. But that's it for this one. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Alex and Nick, for one more time. And we'll be back within a week within this particular call. Thanks everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let's stay in touch.